start. Next week is the end of the first month of the wellness program that Rebecca introduced last time. And so if you have completed any one of the three or have made progress, have done a third of it, send an email to Rebecca and you'll be entered.
We'll send an email out.
She'll send an email.
They can just reply to it.
Okay.
And you can see that against.
So reply to an email that Rebecca will send out next week saying that you have completed a third. And you'll be entered into a drawing. We'll have two $25 gift cards for people that respond. So, the three areas were eating fruits and vegetables, exercising in 15-minute increments, and then a personal goal of your choice. So any of those, if you're a third of the way there, respond to Rebecca and you'll be entered for that. The other thing to remind you of is the employee summer party is Thursday night. Dinner starts at 6 o'clock. Pioneer Park Bowery. Are the wristbands for swimming during the day over? If they've gotten them, you can still get those. So you can talk to Marianne here at the sheriff's office. You can talk to Rebecca at the courthouse and make sure you get some of those. Or there's swimming for everybody after 8:30. So today we have Flint Belk here from Workers' Compensation Fund. He's going to talk about office safety and some issues with backs and lifting. Tiffany Ringstad is really excited to talk to us about hot weather safety. She's from the fire marshal's office. And then we have a short video. Have any of you seen TED Talks? They're good little short videos, and it's talking about the connection between workplace productivity and personal happiness. So we'll talk about that for a few minutes. And then if you want to stay, Washington National is a company that has done a lot with supplemental insurance for the Sheriff's Department. About 40 employees in the Sheriff's Department have said they want to join. This is an employee funded insurance, but it's kind of a gap. So if you go in and break your arm, they'll pay you a certain amount for that. They're going to be here after. If you want to talk to them, they'll be here to make a little presentation. They'll also be here Thursday if that works out better for you after the wrap on Thursday morning. So they will be here at the end. So we'll turn the time over to Flint.
Okay. So I want to start out with a question. Can everybody hear me okay? Maybe even better if I put this on. Does this just clip on? Just goes through. Oh, okay. So the question is, how many fatalities were there last year in the United States? On the job, people who went to work, whether it was sheriffs, whether it was truck drivers, school teachers, factory workers, construction, and didn't come home. How many total fatalities were there in the United States last year? How many is a lot? How many?
26,000.
Fortunately, it's not near that high. At one time it was. During the Vietnam War, we lost more people every year than we did in the war in occupational injuries in the United States. Somebody give me another number. It's lower than 26,000.
5,000.
5,000 is a very good guess. 4,383 people lost their lives last year. Went to work, lost their lives. Part of those were shootings. Part of those were car wrecks. And that's too many. How about Utah? And this number includes some fallen officers. 39. 39 that lost their lives. And so what I want to talk about today, we're going to show a funny video here in a minute that shows people tripping and slipping and falling and running into each other. And it is a very good, funny video. But I want the focus today not just to be, hey, I went to that funny safety meeting. I want you to think about injuries in your workplace. And what do you think has happened with the number of injuries year after year in the workplace in the United States? They've went down. They've went down, not like that, but they've went down a pretty noticeable curve. It's going down, and that's a really good thing. What has happened with severe injuries and fatalities? It's not going down. It's going about like this. It's about level. It is sometimes up, sometimes down. If you would look at the number of fatalities, it's about level the last 4 or 5 years. So why do you think that is? Why are severe injuries not going down, but overall injury totals are going down? You'd think they'd kind of both be going down at the same rate, but that's not the case. So I want everybody to think about, in your job, what is the most common injury, the most common way that you could get injured? And then I want you to think about what is the worst that could happen to you at work? Okay, and so one is, what's the most common thing that could happen, and then the other, what's the worst that could happen to you? So we'll start on the front row. Most common injury in your workplace that you can think of. A paper cut? Do you work in the office?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I drive a lot, so driving.
Probably driving might be the most common if you, and would that also be the most likely way that you could get in a serious injury?
Yes.
Okay. Who else has something other than driving for either the most common injury or the serious injury? Falling, okay. Slips, trips, and falls. And those are always, all of my cities, counties, the officers, it's always one of the big hazards. Why is that slips and falls a big deal?
Because it could have been avoided.
Okay. Well, sometimes, why is it harder to prevent slips, trips, and falls for you guys who are in law enforcement than if I go into a restaurant? It's easy in a restaurant to prevent those slips, trips, and falls. Why isn't it easy here?
Not expecting it here?
Not expecting it. And do you walk on the same work surface every day? No. Changing environment, you don't know what it's going to be. You may be running on, maybe gopher holes, maybe something that you can slip and fall on. It's always a changing environment. Okay? Who else has something, a common injury or a severe injury or a fatality, a way that you could get hurt? Somebody else give me one.
You can get shot.
Okay? You could be, and don't you have procedures in place that you follow, back up, and I don't know exactly what all those are, but you do have certain procedures in place to avoid that, don't you? Okay? And that was, I believe that, how many officers lost their life last year? Was it 2? You guys probably know better than me. That was part of that 39. That was part of that 39. What about common injuries? There's one that I want to talk about for just a little bit that is, everybody here has this hazard in their work. I would bet most people here do anyway.
Heart attack.
Okay, heart attacks actually aren't generally covered. But if we keep eating enough pizza, we might have a heart attack. But I was thinking about lifting. Is there anybody here that doesn't do any lifting in their job? Other than lazy? Oh, is that what you're saying? No. He does lifting. Okay, everybody probably lifts. One of my real bad injuries that I remember from several years ago was a police officer. He was lifting the evidence box out of the trunk and didn't follow good lifting techniques and herniated a disc, and it weighed about 80 pounds. And he says, well, I've done it that way. Well, it finally caught up to him. So let's talk real quickly about things that we can do to save our back. What do you always hear?
Lift with your leg.
Okay, so lifting the right way. Lifting is the #1 cause of back injuries. #2 cause of back injuries, what do you think that is? We've already talked about it. Slips, trips, and falls. #3, accidents, driving accidents, motor vehicle crashes. Those are the top 3 causes. Some of you face all 3 of those. So let's just talk just for a little bit about proper lifting techniques. You always hear bend at the knees, not at the back. Why is that so important?
large muscle.
You're lifting with the large muscle groups. Why is it easier for me to lift this chair? If I lift it like this, pretty easy. If I lift it like this, or even worse, if I go like this and lift it, why is that so hard? The chair's weight hasn't changed. So what has changed about it? The distance it is from your body, you're right, and what difference does that make? What does that increase? Because of leverage, that increases the force on your lower back. Bottom line is, if I do everything the wrong way, I go to grab something, maybe it weighs 20, 30 pounds. Right now, how much force is on my back? Right now, that pivot point, that lever of my back. Right now I'm standing here. If I weighed 200 pounds, how much force is on my lower back? 100 pounds, upper body weight. What happens when I do this? It goes to 500 to 700 pounds. What happens if I do this and grab something and lift it and twist? It goes to 1,400, 1,500 pounds. Day in and day out, that excessive force is not good for your back. So just remember those proper lifting techniques. Save your back so that you can use your back when you go home at night, when you retire from Box Elder County, so that you'll have a good back. The back isn't, anybody here ever had back surgery before? Nobody? Nobody who wants to raise their hand? Does back surgery, if you hurt your back, you herniate those discs, if you've talked with people, friends and neighbors who've had that, do we get all better after we have back surgery? Do we come out of that saying, oh, I feel good as new. Thanks for fixing up my back, doctor. No, generally we don't. We lose something. We lose range of motion. We lose strength in our back. And the pain doesn't always, oftentimes, does not go away. So take care of your back. Use good lifting techniques. It's good to stretch out, to stay active, to get some exercise. And that's, I think, all I want to say on that. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So we'll show the video. And this is on office safety. Just a couple things about this. This video was made in 1988, as you can tell by some of the hairstyles, okay, on here. It's a very good movie. It came by popular request that we show it again. And I don't think you've seen it, have you? Okay, so for those who haven't seen it, it is a good movie. Talks about office safety, talks about lifting, typing, a lot of office hazards. So.
Bill, are you all right? Bill, talk to me. Bill, somebody call a medic. Bill, Bill.
Marvin Tweeves to see Mr. Marsh.
Oh, yes. I remember you. But Mr. Marsh is tied up in a very important meeting.
That's okay. I'll wait.
I see. Well, would you excuse me for a moment, please?
Of course.
Look, I know your people are swamped, but bring in some temps for crying out loud. We're already 2 weeks behind schedule, guys.
Excuse me, Mr. Marsh. There's a Mr. Tweebs here to see you.
Tweebs? Tweebs? Who's he?
He's with the Department of Office Safety.
Oh, no, that's all I need is some snoop from office safety around here. Look, can he come back?
Well, you put him off 2 times already. I think you should see him.
All right. Oh, Jack, are you all right? I'm fine. Listen, just tell him I'll see you. Jack, look out! Thanks, Mike.
You okay?
Yeah.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah, I know. Office safety. What a joke. Mr. Mr. Tweebs. So glad we can finally meet.
Something wrong with your hand?
What, this? No, nothing. Just a little graphite smudge. Kind of tough to get off. Oh, that's all. So, how may I help you?
Well, sir, as you know, our office is concerned with matters of safety and health as they relate to the office workspace.
And what a fine idea that is. I was commenting to someone just recently of the necessity of good, sound safety procedures in today's modern office. One can't be too careful, I've always said. I've always said that.
Well, that's terrific. You'd be amazed at the number of people that think of office safety as a joke.
Really?
They have no idea that there are over 40,000 disabling injuries each year related to office accidents and 200 deaths.
Well, it's very alarming, Mr. Tweebs, but as you can see, we don't have any safety problems in this office.
Well, sir, that's not exactly true. In just the few minutes that I've been here, I've already noted one potentially hazardous situation.
You're kidding.
No, sir. I would never kid about something like this.
No, of course not. Where?
Right here, sir. This torn carpet.
I'll be darned.
Someone could easily catch a shoe on this, trip, and wind up taking a nasty fall.
You know, I never noticed that before. But how likely is that?
Quite likely. Slips and falls are the #1 office hazard. As a matter of fact, an office worker is twice as likely to take a fall as any other worker.
I didn't know that.
Few people do, and it's not just torn carpets. A loose tile can cause a fall. Telephone wires and electrical cords that dangle into walkways.
Matter of fact, I'll go get it.
Great.
A briefcase or a purse set down in the wrong place.
Oh, what are you trying to sell me now?
I tell you.
Oh my God. How's your briefcase?
Materials left in aisles and walkways.
It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next week. All right.
Even little things like a pen or a rubber band can cause a nasty fall.
A rubber band?
Yes, sir. Last year, a secretary tripped over a rubber band. She fell and broke her leg, and she was out of work for 6 weeks. But far and away, the biggest cause of office falls are spills. Especially in the lunchroom. You see, the problem here is the floors are usually tile or linoleum. And even a little bit of spilled water or coffee will cause a problem.
What are you writing there?
No mats.
Mats?
Slip-resistant mats.
Oh.
Yeah, there should be one here in front of the sink where spills are most likely to occur.
Yeah.
Another at the doorway, that's a potentially hazardous zone. And it wouldn't hurt if you had one in front of the Coke machine.
Coke machine.
Coke machine.
Coke machine.
You should also have mats at doors leading outside. Stairways should be carpeted or have anti-slip treads on each step. If there is a spill, don't ignore it. Have it cleaned up immediately. If you have to call someone to do it, it's not a bad idea to set out warning cones to alert your coworkers.
Well, this certainly has been very enlightening, Mr. Tweebs. Thanks so much for stopping by. You know, I had no idea we had this mat problem.
Oh, but I'm not quite through yet, Mr. Marsh. There's still the matter of collisions.
Collisions?
A definite office hazard. You see, most offices are relatively tight and confined. Blind corners are everywhere, and people are often preoccupied with other
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
things. You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But most are near misses like that one. But I've seen my share of doozies. There's so many ways that a collision can occur.
Alexis!
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
It doesn't take much to avoid a collision. Just slowing down a little bit and watching out where you're going. It'll all help out a lot. Well, here we are. One of the most hazardous pieces of office equipment. No. Right here, Mr. Marsh. The file cabinet.
Well, that looks harmless enough. My God, your hand!
Don't be alarmed, Mr. Marsh. Just another one of our office safety training devices. To prove a point, that appearances can be deceiving. And breaking fingers is just one of the ways that a file cabinet can hurt you.
Are you all right?
I'm
sorry.
Fine.
Oh, man alive!
You guys in marketing.
Oh, boy.
You okay? Sure.
This cabinet is not secured.
Where's it gonna go?
This is even worse.
What's that?
This lower drawer is only partially filled.
Yeah.
This top drawer is fully loaded.
So?
So, stand back, please.
Mr. Marsh, what's going on?
I hate to be the one to cause such a scene, but it's another example that had to be made.
What a mess.
I'm not cleaning.
Well, don't just stand there. Get someone to straighten this mess up. And get those cabinets secured.
Who's gonna do this? I'm gonna break a nail.
Next to the file cabinet, the swivel chair is the next most hazardous piece of office equipment. Now, you're familiar with the various functions and features of the swivel chair?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just for a demonstration of this. It swivels, it rolls, and it tilts. It's the swivel chair's very features that make it so dangerous.
Uh-huh.
Listen, what we want to do this time is double that order if we can.
Swivel chairs are especially dangerous when they're used for the wrong purpose.
Oh, Dave! Jeez.
How about lunch?
People should never stand on chairs or desks. That's what a ladder's for. Sure, it takes a few extra minutes, but it's time well spent. And the ladder, it should be fully extended. And you should never go higher than the top step recommended by the manufacturer. And that's this one right here. Hey, hold it right there.
What's wrong?
Everything. Do you see how you're stooping over?
Yeah?
Well, that puts all the strain on your back. Here, let me demonstrate. Oh, thank you. This is the right way to lift something. You want to keep your back erect, right? That puts the load on your leg muscles, the strongest muscles in your body. You got it? Now, when you're ready to set the load down, use the same technique. Keep your back erect and use your leg muscles. Got it?
Yeah.
When you're carrying a load, keep your back erect and the load close to your body at waist level. If you're having difficulty keeping the load at waist level, then it's too heavy for you. Put it down without letting your fingers get pinched underneath and get some help.
Tim, can you give me some help over here?
And never, ever carry anything that blocks your vision. There are a lot of little things that can cause an office accident. These pencils, they should be pointed down.
Interesting.
May I take a look in your drawer? Thank you.
Okay, we've all seen neater desks, but this isn't a safety hazard.
Oh, no? Well, suppose you're reaching in there in a hurry. You don't know what you're going to run into.
Like what?
This letter opener. and this very rusted razor blade. Other dangerous office items are staple guns.
Oh, gee, man! Oh, gee, man! Oh, God! You know, it was loaded.
Well, guess
Paper
what?
cutters.
We called you last night.
No kidding.
Yeah, and we're going out Saturday night. Can you believe it?
Super.
Yeah, I don't know where we're gonna go, but somewhere fun, I
Oh,
hope.
great.
I know.
And utility knives.
Oh, man! Man!
This is really bad.
Look at that outlet. Are you aware that office fires are more of a hazard today than were just a few years ago? That's because of the increased number of electrical machines in use today. Overloaded outlets can overheat and cause an electrical fire. Spread the plugs around, or use a multiple receptacle that has its own built-in circuit breaker. And while you're at it, check for damaged plugs and frayed cords. Space heaters are another fire hazard. If you have to use one, it should never be left unattended. Hot plates can also be problems. Never put them near paper towels, napkins, or other combustible materials. And be sure to shut them off when not in use. Cleaning rags should be disposed of in a metal container with a lid, not in a wastebasket. And if your office permits smoking, you shouldn't throw matches into wastebaskets. You never know what may be in them. Every employee should know the location of fire extinguishers and how to use them.
Done. Get it out.
Certain extinguishers only work on certain types of fires. Find out what kind of extinguishers are in your office.
That's my office right there.
Fire evacuation routes should be posted in key parts of the office. Employees should study them and learn the proper exits before there's a fire. Another problem area, VDTs.
Hey, I never touched the stuff.
No, Mr. Marsh, VDTs, video display terminals. It's a relatively new office hazard.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Problems with VDTs include eye strain, neck, back, and shoulder pain, wrist injuries, fatigue, headaches, and general irritability. The position of the VDT is very important. The top of the screen should be just slightly below the user's eye level. This puts the neck and shoulders in a natural strain-free position. The keyboard should be at a level so that the forearms and wrists are horizontal with the floor. To more easily achieve proper screen and keyboard placement, the user's chair should be adjustable. It should also be comfortable and, if possible, ergonomically designed. VDT users should have a 15-minute break every 2 hours. And you should rotate the work schedules whenever possible, and that way the workers aren't sitting in front of a terminal day after day.
You know, I never knew there were so many hazards in an office.
Well, offices are generally regarded as being very safe, and that can make them very dangerous. It's an attitude that nothing can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's important to create a safety-first environment, just to remind people. An occasional safety workshop can't hurt.
We should have had that last week.
Safety posters are a good idea.
Can't hurt.
You could assign someone to safety patrol where they look for possible hazards. Unsafe procedures. Cluttered work areas. They invite accidents. Aisles and walkways should be well lighted and free of debris and materials. And it's not a bad idea to install a convex mirror at tricky corners. The same for tops of cabinets and bookshelves. They should be free of materials that could fall and injure someone. And just in case, every office should have a well-equipped first aid kit.
Well, I guess we didn't do so hot, huh?
No, not too bad, really. No office is perfect. And this is better than many.
All right.
But don't get overconfident, Mr. Marsh. Overconfidence leads to complacency. Complacency leads to accidents. Oh, watch out for that carpeting. My office will send you a full written report in about a week.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tweeps, for stopping by.
Always my pleasure, Mr. Marsh. Remember, safety first.
Karen, call somebody, have them fix that carpet right away, would you please?
I'm sorry.
So we're going to talk about hot weather-related injuries and the ways to prevent it. There's the common types and the signs of weather-related injuries. Medical problems can occur when bodies are not protected from extreme temperatures. Heat-related injuries often begin gradually. If a person remains exposed to these temperatures, it can cause an emergency situation. When they're left untreated, they can develop into a serious injury or even death. About 305 people die each year as related to inclement weather. Employees are encouraged to use common sense and take weather precautions both on and off the job. People suffer heat-related illnesses when the body temperatures occur. When your system is overloaded, your body usually cools itself by sweating, but under some conditions, sweating is not enough. In these cases, the body temperatures rise rapidly and cause damage to your brain and other vital organs. One of the related injuries is dehydration, and it's an excessive loss of water and salt to the body during a prolonged exposure to heat. Your signs are thirst, dry mouth, fatigue, lightheadedness, confusion, dry skin, increased heart rate, and breathing. You can prevent this by drinking plenty of fluids throughout the day when sweating more, and avoid strenuous and sports activities during the intense sunlight hours. You care for this by getting the person to a cool, dry place, have the person lie down and rest, and have the person drink plenty of fluids. Monitor the person, especially elderly people and children. Heat exhaustion, a non-life-threatening condition caused by excessive loss of fluids from the body due to a prolonged exposure to extreme heat. Your signs of this are headache, blurred vision, nausea, upset stomach, vomiting, fatigue, thirst, profuse sweating, moderate increase in body temperature. To prevent this, you should take frequent breaks when working outside in extreme weather, wear light-colored clothing and hats, avoid strenuous work and sports during intense sunlight hours, and drink plenty of fluids. You care for heat exhaustion by moving the person to a cool, dry place, have the person lie down, apply cool water to skin and reapply often, and fan the wet skin. Have the person drink lots of fluids. Heat stroke is the inability for the body to cool itself after a prolonged exposure to extreme heat. Heat stroke is a life-threatening condition. Signs of heat stroke: headache, dizziness, disorientation and confusion, sluggishness or fatigue, seizures, hot, dry skin, loss of consciousness, rapid heartbeat, and hallucinations. Prevention is to take breaks when working and playing outdoors in extreme heat, wear light-colored clothing and hats, avoid strenuous activities during the intense sunlight, Drink plenty of fluids throughout the day. Your care is to call 911 immediately, move the person to a quiet place, apply cool water to skin and reapply often, fan wet skin, and apply ice packs to the neck, armpits, and growing areas.
So drink lots of water.
Yeah. See?
Chris holds the model for drinking lots of water. And here's the presentation. Really, the reason we brought this up is, some of us work in an office a lot, but you've got sheriff's office employees, you've got the landfill, you've got landfills outside most of the time, sheriff's department. You guys, if you're on a call and you have to go out, it's the middle of the day. I mean, you've got to be careful of this too. Wiggins, your big Dr. Pepper, whatever it is, isn't going to help with this. But water, especially when it's hot, is what you need to be looking for. So this will be on this PowerPoint will be on the wrap folder on the shared Box Elder County Drive if you want to look at it. Our last piece is, this was sent to us by Stan Summers. This is a TED Talk. It's short. It's only about 8 minutes long. But it talks about the guy, if it comes up for us, the guy is going to make the connection between you being happy personally and your productivity at work.
When I was 7 years old and my sister was just 5 years old, we were playing on top of a bunk bed. I was 2 years older than my sister at the time. I mean, I'm 2 years older than her now, but at the time that meant she had to do everything that I wanted to do, and I wanted to play war. So we were up on top of our bunk beds, and on one side of the bunk bed I had put out all my G.I. Joe soldiers and weaponry, and on the other side were all my sister's Milos and ponies and ready for a cavalry charge. There are differing accounts of what actually happened that afternoon, but since my sister is not here with us today, let me tell you the true story. Which is, my sister is a little bit on the clumsy side, and somehow, without any help or push from her older brother at all, suddenly Amy disappeared off of the top of the bunk bed and landed with us crash on the floor. And I nervously peered over the side of the bed to see what had befallen my fallen sister, and saw that she had landed painfully on her hands and knees on all fours on the ground. I was nervous because my parents had charged me with making sure that my sister and I played as safely and as quietly as possible. And seeing as how I had accidentally broken Amy's arm just 1 week before, heroically pushing her out of the way of an oncoming imaginary sniper bullet, for which I have yet to be thanked. I was trying as hard as I could. She didn't even see it coming. I was trying as hard as I could to be on my best behavior, and I saw my sister's face this wail of pain and suffering and surprise, threatening to erupt from her mouth and threatening to wake my parents from the long winter's nap for which they had settled. So I did the only thing my little frantic 7-year-old brain could think to do to avert this tragedy. If you have children, you've seen this hundreds of times before. I said, Amy, wait, don't cry, don't cry. Did you see how you landed? No human lands on all fours like that. Amy, I think this means you're a unicorn. Now that was cheating, because there's nothing in the world my sister would want more than not to be Amy the hurt 5-year-old little sister, but Amy the special unicorn. Of course, this was an option that was open to her brain at no point in the past, and you could see on my poor, manipulated sister's face conflict, as her little brain attempted to devote resources to feeling the pain and suffering surprise she just experienced, or contemplating her newfound identity as a unicorn. And the latter won out. Instead of crying, instead of ceasing our play, instead of waking my parents with all the negative consequences that would have ensued for me, instead, a smile spread across her face, and she scrambled right back up onto the bunk bed with all the grace of a baby unicorn. With one broken leg. What we stumbled across at this tender age of just 5 and 7, we had no idea at the time, was something that was going to be at the vanguard of a scientific revolution occurring 2 decades later in the way that we look at the human brain. What we had stumbled across is something called positive psychology, which is the reason that I'm here today and the reason that I wake up every morning. When I first started talking about this research outside of academia, out with companies and schools, the very first thing they said to never do is to start your talk with a graph. The very first thing I wanted to do is start my talk with a graph. This graph looks boring, but this graph is the reason that I get excited and wake up every morning. And this graph doesn't even mean anything. It's fake data. What we found is if I got this data back studying you here in the room, I would be thrilled because there's very clearly a trend that's going on there, and that means that I can get published, which is all that really matters. The fact that there's one weird red dot that's up above the curve, there's one weird in the room, you know who you are, I saw you earlier. That's no problem. That's no problem, as most of you know, because I can just delete that dot. I can delete that dot because that's clearly a measurement error, and we know that's a measurement error because it's messing up my data. So one of the very first things that we teach people in economics and statistics and business and psychology courses is how, in a statistically valid way, do we eliminate the weirdos? How do we eliminate the outliers? So that we can find the line of best fit, which is fantastic if I'm trying to find out how many Advil the average person should be taking, too. But if I'm interested in potential, if I'm interested in your potential or for happiness or productivity or energy or creativity, what we're doing is we're creating the cult of the average with science. If I ask a question like how fast can a child learn how to read in a classroom, scientists change the answer to how fast does the average child learn how to read in that classroom, and then we tailor the class right towards the average. Now, if you fall below the average on this curve, then psychologists get thrilled, because that means you're either depressed or you have a disorder or hopefully both. We're hoping for both because our business model is if you come into a therapy session with one problem, we want to make sure you leave knowing you have 10. So you'll keep coming back over and over again. We'll go back into your childhood if necessary, but eventually what we want to do is to make you normal again. But normal is merely average. And what I posit and what positive psychology posits is that if we study what is merely average, we will remain merely average. Then instead of deleting those positive outliers, what I intentionally do is come into a population like this one and says, why? Why is it that some of you are so high above the curve in terms of your intellectual ability, athletic ability, musical ability, creativity, energy levels, your resiliency in the face of challenge, your sense of humor? Whatever it is, instead of deleting you, what I want to do is study you. Because maybe we can glean information, not just how to move people up to the average, but how we can move the entire average up at our companies and schools worldwide. The reason this graph is important to me is when I turn on the news, it seems like the majority of the information is not positive. In fact, it's negative. Most of it's about murder, corruption, diseases, natural disasters, and very quickly, my brain starts to think that's the accurate ratio of negative to positive in the world. What that's doing is creating something called the medical school syndrome, which if you know people who have been to medical school during the first year of medical training, as you read through a list of all the symptoms and diseases that could happen, suddenly you realize you have all of them. I have a brother-in-law named Bobo, which is a whole other story. Bobo married Amy the unicorn. Bobo called me on the phone from Yale Medical School. And Bobo said, "Sean, I have leprosy." Which even at Yale is extraordinarily rare. But I had no idea how to console poor Bobo because he had just gotten over an entire week of menopause. See, what we're finding is not necessarily the reality that shapes us, but the lens through which your brain views the world that shapes your reality. And if we can change the lens, not only can we change your happiness, we can change every single educational and business outcome at the same time. When I applied to Harvard, I applied on a dare. I didn't expect to get in, and my family had no money for college. When I got a military scholarship 2 weeks later that allowed me to go, suddenly something that wasn't even a possibility became a reality. When I went there, I assumed everyone else would see it as a privilege as well, that they'd be excited to be there. Even if you're in a classroom full of people smarter than you, you'd be happy just to be in that classroom, which is what I felt. But what I found there is while some people experienced that, when I graduated after my 4 years and then spent the next 8 years living in the dorms with the students, Harvard asked me to. Wasn't that guy. But what happened, I was an officer of Harvard to counsel students through the difficult 4 years, and what I found in my research and my teaching is that these students, no matter how happy they were with their original success of getting into the school, 2 weeks later their brains were focused not on the privilege of being there, nor on their philosophy or their physics. Their brain was focused on the competition, the workload, the hassles, the stresses, the complaints. When I first went in there, I walked into the freshman dining hall, which is where my friends from Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up, I know some of you have heard of it. When they come to visit me, they look around, they say, this freshman dining hall looks like something out of Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, which it does. This is Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, and that's Harvard. And when they see this, they say, Sean, why do you waste your time studying happiness at Harvard? Seriously, what does a Harvard student possibly have to be unhappy about? Embedded within that question is the key to understanding the science of happiness. Because what that question assumes is that our external world is predictive of our happiness levels. When in reality, if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted not by the external world, but by the way your brain processes the world. And if we change it, if we change our formula for happiness and success, what we can do is change the way that we can then affect reality. What we found is that only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. 75% of job successes are predicted by your optimism levels, your social support, and your ability to see stress as a challenge instead of as a threat. I talked to a boarding school up in New England, probably the most prestigious boarding school, and they said, we already know that. So every year, instead of just teaching our students, we also have a wellness week, and we're so excited. Monday night, we have the world's leading expert coming in to speak about adolescent depression. Tuesday night is school violence and bullying. Wednesday night's eating disorders. Thursday night is illicit drug use. And Friday night, we're trying to decide between risky sex or happiness. I said that's most people's Friday nights. Which I'm glad you liked, but they did not like that at all. Silence on the phone. And into the silence, I said, I'd be happy to speak at your school, but just so you know, that's not a wellness week, that's a sickness week. What you've done is you've outlined all the negative things that can happen, but not talked about the positive. The absence of disease is not health. Here's how we get to health. We need to reverse the formula for happiness and success. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to 45 different countries, working with schools and companies in the midst of an economic downturn. And what I found is that most companies and schools follow a formula for success, which is this: if I work harder, I'll be more successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. That undergirds most of our parenting styles, our managing styles, the way that we motivate our behavior. And the problem is, it's scientifically broken and backwards for 2 reasons. First, every time your brain has a success, you just change the goalpost of what success looked like. You got good grades, now you have to get better grades. You got into a good school, now you have to get a better school. You got a good job, now you have to get a better job. You hit your sales target, we're going to change your sales target. And if happiness is on the opposite side of success, your brain never gets there. What we've done is we've pushed happiness over the cognitive horizon as a society. And that's because we think we have to be successful, then we'll be happier. But the real problem is our brains work in the opposite order. If you can raise somebody's level of positivity in the present, then their brain experiences what we now call a happiness advantage, which is your brain at positive performs significantly better than it does at negative, neutral, or stressed. Your intelligence rises, your creativity rises, your energy levels rise. In fact, what we found is that every single business outcome improves. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. Doctors are 19% faster, more accurate at coming up with the correct diagnosis when positive instead of negative, neutral, or stressed, which means we can reverse the formula. If we can find a way of becoming positive in the present, then our brains work even more successfully as we're able to work harder, faster, and more intelligently. What we need to be able to do is to reverse this formula so we can start to see what our brains are actually capable of. Because dopamine, which floods into your system when you're positive, has 2 functions. Not only does it make you happier, it turns on all of the learning centers in your brain, allowing you to adapt to the world in a different way. We've found that there are ways that you can train your brain to be able to become more positive. In just a 2-minute span of time, done for 21 days in a row, we can actually rewire your brain, allowing your brain to actually work more optimistically and more successfully. We've done these things in research now in every single company that I've worked with, getting them to write down 3 new things that they're grateful for 21 days in a row, 3 new things each day. And at the end of that, their brain starts to retain a pattern of scanning the world not for the negative, but for the positive first. Journaling about one positive experience you've had over the past 24 hours allows your brain to relive it. Exercise teaches your brain that your behavior matters. We find that meditation allows your brain to get over the cultural ADHD that we've been creating by trying to do multiple tasks at once, and allows our brains to focus on the task at hand. And finally, random acts of kindness or conscious acts of kindness. We get people, when they open up their inbox, to write one positive email praising or thanking somebody in their social support network. And by doing these activities and by training your brain, just like we train our bodies, what we found is we can reverse the formula for happiness and success, and in doing so, not only create ripples of positivity, but create a real revolution. Thank you very much.
That's a little bit different than some of the stuff that we've presented in RAP programs before. But that's why we did it, because we think that that's important. Sometimes we hear from county employees that, there's lots of drama or things are negative in the county. If each of us can try to change individually how we look at what's happening, we feel that there can be a more positive outcome of what's happening in each of our individual jobs and our lives. So thanks for coming today. Washington National is outside, ready to walk in. If any of you want to stay, you're welcome to. Some of you have already signed up with them, and it's been a good opportunity for you. So thanks for coming.